Hi again guys, and welcome to, of course, another circuit setup for GT Sport in particular, and this is actually kind of a remnant of one of the packs that we didn't completely cover, because this was the last tune that I didn't do for the BMW Z8. So what I decided to do is to build it to a baseline of N300, and then, as with all of my circuit tunes, you can repurpose it to a higher class if you want to. So although it's for N300, you can definitely use it for N4, N5 if you want to as well. Now, as far as this car's ability, if you'd like to know before we even get into it how good it actually is, it falls somewhere between my TVR Tuscan and my Hyundai Genesis in N300. It's a little bit quicker than the Hyundai, not quite as quick as the TVR. So I would actually say it's fairly similar to the Mercedes SLR McLaren in as much as it's not slow, but it's not the fastest thing out there either. So bear that in mind as far as using it. I would recommend this more for people who specifically like the car, not just for people who are looking for the fastest thing out there, because it categorically isn't. The best options are still the Tuscan, the new Supra, and the early model 911 GT3. At least as far as my tuning goes. Now, as far as the upgrades themselves, of course you want to lower the weight as much as you can. It's still quite a lot heavier than many other vehicles like this, which is unfortunate. As far as the power, of course you want it to the peak of N300, which in this case is 87% power. Traction control is down to you, of course. Less experienced drivers might want to use a little bit, but I'd recommend trying not to, because you will become faster without it. As far as sports tyres, that is the option of the day. Again, I've mentioned before, I do not build road cars with racing tyres 9 times out of 10, because if you build a car to use racing tyres first and foremost, and then you are forced to use sports tyres for whatever reason, it could turn out to be absolute trash. Whereas if you build a car to be good on sports tyres, generally speaking, it will be good for sports tyres and then even better with racing tyres. It works that way, but it doesn't work the other way round. And that's a very important thing to bear in mind when you're tuning. As far as the suspension, we've got the ride height on 105mm front and rear. You could go even lower, to be honest, if you wanted to drop that centre of gravity even more. Just be careful of bottoming out on the track, of course. The frequency on the suspension we've got on 2.1, which is fairly high. For the anti-roll, we've got 7 and 6. You could put the rear up to 7 as well. Try that, see if you prefer it. As far as the compression on the dampers, we've got 64, 92 for the rebound. I have opted for neutral camber, even though the car has a little bit of a tail-happy nature. It kind of performs in a similar way to the Tuscan, but with more weight, which kind of makes sense. So if you find it to be a little bit too slippery, by all means you could put it on, say, 1 or even 2 degrees of camber. You shouldn't really need to go any higher than 2, if that. 1 degree would be more than enough for most people, I think, but as you can see, I've gone for none because I don't personally feel that it needs it. We've got neutral toe, downforce you cannot adjust, of course. For the diff, I've opted for halfway on the initial torque, as low as possible for both the acceleration and the braking. That helps to really focus the handling a lot more, makes it far less tail happy. If you put the initial torque lower, you can drift a lot easier, and vice versa, you could try taking it a little bit higher if you want to as well. And finally, for the gearbox, of course this is optimized for N300 and the associated power, so if you do tune it higher, say to N400 or N500, you will need to adjust the gearing. But for N300 in particular, of course you want the fully customized transmission, auto setting of 168 miles per hour, then for the individual gears 3.1, 2.2, 1.7, 1375, 1150 and 1, with that final drive of 3.24. So that's it for the setup. Of course, feel free to test out other things if you want to. If it doesn't work out, you can always just come back to this tune and do it again, like a default setup, if you will. But what you want to see is this car actually performing in action on our test course. And that test course of choice is obviously Dragon Trail, the Top Gear circuit of this channel, where we compare all of the circuit tunes that I've done, or pretty much all of them. And as I said, this one compares pretty well. It's like in my top 6 fastest N300 cars. So that's not bad, especially for a car that I'm not really a fan of. It's kind of a poser's car. But in terms of ability, It is a bit quicker, as I said, than the Hyundai Genesis, which sounds like a weird comparison, but as I've mentioned before, that's actually a very good car. Not quite as quick as the Tuscan, and definitely not as quick as either the new Supra or, in particular, the Porsche. The Porsche's way ahead. The new Supra is a good 2 to 3 seconds quicker, because this car's second lap is around a 1:55. So in terms of ability, I have no doubt that you guys could push this car even further than I did with this same tune, because funnily enough, I tend to be a better tuner than I am a driver. But that's not necessarily a bad thing for making tutorials. If you can build tune setups that make other people even faster than you, that's kind of a good thing, as far as I'm concerned. So if you do decide to use this tune, I hope you have a ton of fun with it, of course win races with it, and if you want to check out my other circuit tunes, and a wide variety of other things as well. We've done drift tuning, drag tuning, top speed race tuning, even special replica projects. Then click here on screen to see all of those. But for now, as always, thanks for watching.